Hi, it's Calder here from Singing Matters, and I wanted to discuss today everything to do with why you can't sing on your bridge just yet, why you can't sing over your vocal break, and some of the things that might be getting in the way of you being able to do that. I don't like the angle of my microphone. Let's move that a little bit. So it's the holy grail of singing. It's the hardest bit of your voice. It's the most tricky thing to master in singing, and it will always be. No matter how much you've sorted out your technique, it will always be the part of your voice that requires that little bit more attention. I find that if I'm heading out to a show, depending on how much singing I've done that week and how well prepared I am, I always have to focus a little bit around the bridge, building up to the bridge and going through that passaggio area. I just focus on it a little bit more. And sometimes it's not coming out cleanly. Sometimes it's, clearly sort of not ready. You can tell it needs a bit of work. It needs a bit of reprogramming, as I said in my warm-up video, if you watch that, all about how to warm up and why I see warming up not just as a stretching the muscles type warm-up like you might do before a workout or something like that. That's not something I do very often. It's as much about the warming up and the stretching in that sense as it is programming the muscles, and that's the way I like to put it. You're programming the muscles, you're reminding the muscles what to do, you are setting them up for success during your rehearsal or show or whatever it is. And without that, the tension can build up, the tension can creep in, little issues with your technique can creep in no matter how far down that road you've come. The voice is a moving target, another favourite quote of mine from Lynn Hilton, who taught me. It's a moving target. You will not hit it as well on one day as he did another. Last week compared to this week, things can change. I've recently realised quite how much of a problem lack of sleep or poor sleep or not enough sleep had probably caused me during the time where I used to destroy my voice week in, week out. Singing without enough sleep, you will find the bridge part of your voice even harder to come by, and you just have to work for it more, and it actually feels like a lot of effort to get it going. Now, when I say effort, I don't mean oomph and intensity and force effort. I mean effort in controlling and balancing and navigating that part of your voice in a way which is comfortable and easy. And that's where the effort is. That's where the intensity is not in brute force like it feels like it needs to be at times in that part of your voice, but the intensity is almost in the concentration it takes to back off and to do less and to keep it balanced and to keep it light and to let it lift into that area much better. So as often in these videos, the way I've set up my channel, the way I've done things up to now is just turn the camera on and start talking to you. I wanted to cover this. It's similar to the mixed voice video, but I want to look at some of the reasons why you can't sing on your bridge yet and try and give you some hope that you will and you can, and it's something that takes a bit of time to develop, but to trust the process. I've had a lot of students in the last few weeks with various problems and issues around that part of the voice, various things that they're not happy with, or they can tell, oh, it doesn't sound quite right, or it doesn't feel very free and doesn't feel very comfortable, or it doesn't feel very controllable or in control for different reasons. But everyone has one of these kinds of problems going on if they're still trying to master it. So I've had one guy who was doing everything really breathy. There was no support. His instinct was to go for something really light and soft around that area, which is great. Now, for someone like me who sang with so much force when I tried to get up to that part of my range, there's this build up of intensity. You feel like you need to hit that note with so much effort and force. That's a million miles away from the guy I'm talking about my student this week who goes in the opposite direction, does everything really soft and falsetto and light. Now, for someone who sings with loads of intensity and way too much power and way too much force, I would encourage them to do almost what this other chap was doing and get him to try and sing it light, try and sing it falsetto, just sing all of it in a head voicey falsetto type setup, remove the chest voice, make it light. Now, all of these things obviously will be hindered if you haven't got your breath control sorted. If you don't know how to breathe into your diaphragm, dog pants, the way forward. If you're trying to take quick breaths in a line, in between lines in a song, which we all are, because that's what's required. We want to get the breath control working. It's one thing taking a breath. It's another thing holding on to it and using it properly and letting the chords control the airflow. Now, I'm not going to go into that today, but we'll just need to assume that if there are breath function issues, that could be something that's holding you back. No matter what else you try and fix, no matter what else you try and work on, or what else you take from this video, the breath function and support issues will get in the way if that's not sorted. So always come back to that. Have a look at my breath video to try and work out some of those things, and if you can get yourself breathing better. But assuming that's not the main issue, now with this chap, that was part of the issue, but he also had an instinct to go soft in those higher notes, and it lacked power. It lacks, it didn't sound belty. He's doing musical theatre, a little bit away from my kind of style. But over the years of coaching, I've become a lot more used to musical theatre. And you can't sing those sorts of notes in that soft, breathy way. It's just not going to cut it. For a start, it's not going to carry across a hall in a room how it's required for a start, and it's just going to sound weak, and you feel out of control. Now, part of the reason it felt out of control is because he didn't have the support, and it's floppy. Your body feels floppy if the support's not there. When you set your body like that, now I do that sound to engage the chords and set the body up, but then you've got to kind of release all that intensity, because that's too much. If you try and sing on that, it's going to be strained. But that might start to teach you that maybe you do sing strained, and you're trying to just let go. So it's just the chords. It feels like your body's not doing anything other than you're just kind of engaged in the stomach and in your lower abs. So he needed to do a little bit of that. Now, other people do what I do, and they go powering into their, mixed range. They go powering into that bridge area. They go too strong, too chesty, too powerful in the notes leading up to the bridge, and then they get all sorts of problem, all sorts of strain by the time they reach that part of their range. So what's happening? Why can't you sing over your bridge? You can't sing over your bridge because one or other part of the mechanism is not functioning right. So we need to work out what that is, and you need to feel your way through it. I've had students this week who've been following courses by very well-renowned vocal coaches worldwide, but still struggle to get certain aspects of what they were learning into practice. Something was wrong about how they were doing it. Now, it's really interesting because two people this week have had a very similar thing where they were trying to do a vocal fry, but they were squeezing like hell to get that fry sound. And a vocal fry is not squeezed. It's the lightest thing you can do with your voice. It's not squeezed to get that sound. Doesn't feel comfortable doing that. It's light. It's the lightest, thinnest edge you can make the chords connect with. I always think it feels like they're touching like the thinnest edges of a piece of paper, really thin. There's no mass of the chords kind of bashing and, all this sort of strain and intensity. It's really, really light. So a couple of people started to fix how to move up through their break by using the vocal fry. And they realized that they were both doing this squeeze, this pressure, this kind of grip. We're using the extrinsic muscles that need to get out of the way to try and create a sound that they were hearing. And we have to watch out for that sort of a thing. You will have one or other problems going on in your voice that everyone else struggles with, or put yourself in one or one of two or three different camps, it's all the same problems that everyone's having, and it's not just your voice. So often people are trying to carry their chest too high, and they're not starting to transition into the bridge until they notice that they're there, until they notice that they've hit the bridge. They're not trying to do anything different. Now, for guys, that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen around here. Your E, F sharp, G. You're gonna notice it there, but really, what you need to start doing is blending towards that head voice a lot lower down than you think. So you don't notice a problem down here because it's not too high at all. You don't notice a problem really until you kind of hit up to here, and then you start to notice it. But we need to start blending lower down. Now I find I've learned to lift that sound to really help the resonance happen up here and move into this part of your face. This is what we're talking about, head voice. There's a reason why it's called head voice. As I've explained before, it resonates and vibrates the thinner part of your head and your skull and your bone structure up here, and the resonance moves up here, and you can feel that vibration when you get used to recognizing it. Now, if I didn't lift, it wouldn't go up there as easily. And that's one of the things that people don't do. And when I try and get people to try kind of yawning or crying into it, therefore lifting the soft palate at the roof of the back of your mouth, they feel a bit silly. They kind of half do it. They don't really commit to it. But it's hard to get yourself doing these things and believing in the process or playing around with these things with confidence. It feels a bit awkward at first, and it feels a bit silly, and you're not as invested in it because you haven't had the result that makes you believe in it. And then when you believe in it, you try it again and you try it again, and you refine your ability to do it. But I plead with people to just make themselves do stuff like kind of lifting inside to get up to those notes. And it's surprising. It will surprise you. It surprises me almost still now how light you can go and still make it sound powerful. How much you can kind of take away from the force that you're putting into it and still make it sound powerful. People are obsessed with, but don't say, it sounds weak, it sounds this, it sounds the other. And invariably, it doesn't. It's just their perception of what they're hearing. And as a coach, like in any job, in any walk of life, you repeat yourself a lot, and you tell the customer the same thing over and over again. They ask the same questions over again. But in singing, it's the same, and I'm used to saying these sorts of things to students now. But for them, it's new each time, and it takes a little bit of time to believe in it and start trusting the process. So I had a few things in mind there that are starting to slip out of my brain as I talk. You'd be surprised how light you can make it and still sound powerful, and sometimes it sounds way better for putting less into it. I had a student doing a Muse song, Time Is Running Out by Muse. And Matt Bellamy, he's got such a beautiful floaty voice where he goes into his head voice all the time, and he's always in that lovely mix. But he uses falsetto to effects as well, even when he's not that high. I'll have to get the chords out in a sec, but you will be the death of me. That section. And you, lovely falsetto flip on purpose on an E. So it's not like massively high, but it's getting towards your bridge. You, but he chooses, because it's an oo vowel as well, which lends itself to falsetto. And you will be. But it's easy to try and overdo the distance between those two things. Just because he's gone from a falsetto back down to a chesty sound, we don't need to put as much distance between those two things. You will be. Keep it heady. Keep it living in that kind of same space. And this is alien to people. You're trying to understand the resonance and feel the resonance. And when you get a feel for that, you're much more likely to do things like the sort of yawn or cry at the back of your mouth to help it get up there. You realise that it really does help. And you will be. You don't need to go, and you will be, you know, or anything dramatic like that. That was a bit ridiculous. But you see what I'm saying? It's, even though it's falsetto and back into a more chesty sound, there's not as much distance between those two things as you think. And a big part of the sound on you will be, if I just sing that in falsetto, and you will be, you can stay up there. And a big part of the sound is still that heady sound. And you will be, and you will be. You can let it go light. Play around with the dynamics of it there. Will be. Let it go soft at the end of it. The death. Now, my student was going, the death. He was really overpowering that bit because it's almost like an emotional interpretation of what you're hearing in the song. But actually, when you listen to him do it, it's a lot more restrained than that. The death. You have to really make yourself hold back. And you will be the death of me. Now, bury it. I'm using cry. This little yelp of a cry you might hear at the end of the line, under the word there. Matt Bellamy does that all the time. It's a really good trick for getting into your high range. If I start to talk like I'm crying like that, you hear the voice go up there. You hear something change. You tweak. You pull on the cricothyroid cartilage and you get a tilted sound where it pulls the chords together and they are less likely to go breathy and falsetto. And you will be. You can hear it a bit in that. The death. And that line there, I can see how easy it is to overdo a phrase like that. The death of me. So much of it is living up here. The death of me. There's like no sense of it in the mouth. It's kind of all up here. The death of me. Okay, so I'm singing through that song. If I was to do the chorus, our time is running out. Now I'm using that cry again. Our time is running out. You see how that cry, that little yelp, helps lift it, and it adds emotion, but it sounds free as well. It doesn't sound trapped. It doesn't sound like it's restricted and trapped. It's free and it's floaty, and it sounds like it has headroom. It sounds like you've got space to go higher. It sounds like you're playing with your voice a little bit and you've got freedom in it. But it also sounds emotional. The cry is a really, really handy technique, and it covers a lot of different stuff. Technically, it helps, but emotionally, it really adds something as well. So I got my student who's over in Canada, who's come for a couple of lessons and booked online for a block. While the discount still lasts, feel free to join it and get that. I won't be doing that for much longer because it costs a lot of money to live. I need to put the price back up. So get it while you can. It's still available at the moment. And he loved that cry. As soon as he heard me sort of demonstrate that cry, he started trying to do it. And he's a quick learner, and he's quickly changing things, and he's quickly making improvements, which is brilliant to see. And the cry, and it sounded really, really good. And he was suddenly like, yeah, I'm going to work on that. So we've got to use that. You go around the internet, you'll find a lot of people talking about cry technique. That's a good example, that song, and Matt Bellamy as a singer. So again, as always, I'm randomly just waffling at you about these subjects. But to answer the question that I'm intending to answer with this, how or why you can't sing in your break, why you can't sing through the passaggio, there'll be a number of problems. Some of it might be breath related. Some of it will be not blending early enough into the mixed register. So you're not allowing, if you remember from what I've talked about in other videos, you're not allowing the muscles at the back to start doing their job. You're not allowing them to pull backwards, and you're holding on too much to your chest voice. And again, you may have no reference for this other than once or twice you've heard people talk about it, or maybe you've seen me do this, or whatever it is. You may have no reference point or no ability to feel that in your voice, and that's what's hard about it. What you're trying to do is refine your ability to feel these things. So when you're getting up there, you're trying to death of me. There's a resonance shift. Certain notes will suddenly feel like they go up here. So you can sing a phrase, la, da, 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 and by the time you get to the top of it, there's a shift, and it feels like it's in a different space. Vocal coaches are always doing all this. You can't help it. You have to, because we can't see it, and we're trying to visualize something that we can't see. And it's really important to try and paint that picture for yourself about what's going on with the muscles physiologically, and kind of picture where you can feel things and really refine your sensations. It's why I always say, stop listening to yourself and start feeling what's going on. It's the only way. So you need to let go and start blending with the muscles, letting those muscles pull back, and therefore letting go a little bit with these muscles. If you grip too much with these, you're just not letting it start to take over at the back. It's just going to suddenly flip and break. That's why you will get a sudden break in your voice when you hit the wall, you hit the ceiling of your bridge. We're trying to blend so that it goes through that and you don't notice it. You know, you hear the strain build up as you get higher. And if you're doing a scale, you need to learn to let go into a head voice sound. You know, instead of that, as you get higher, if it feels more intense, every note that goes up, you're probably gripping too much on your chest voice, and you need to train yourself to start letting go and letting the muscles at the back take over. But at the same time that that's happening, you're letting the shift of resonance occur as well. So it starts to move up into the head. It starts to go behind the nasal cavity. It starts to come through your top lip. And it's like it lives above you. If I put a card in my mouth there's a roof of your mouth. It's like it lives in there, in the roof of your mouth. It lives in this space. Comes in above the top lip, behind the nose. It lives up there. There's nothing of it down here anymore. If I make that really nasal, you can kind of hear the brightness of it, the nasality of it, but it's all up there. Hey, 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 like that. You hear how it moves up. If you try and do that all in the same place, you're going to start to strain and struggle. So can you recognize that in your own voice? Are there points when you're singing where you're like, yeah, it gets more strained as I go up? You may be used to it feeling like that, and you may know nothing else as a singer. You may have no other reference point. You may have no other sensation that you've ever felt. You're so used to it that it feels normal and it feels right. And what you've got to try and do is recognize that it perhaps isn't healthy or isn't ideal, and that sensation, as subtle as it is, the intensity building up, the pressure, the sort of force building up as you go higher, that is a sign that there's something needs to change around those notes. And it's lower than you notice the problem. It's lower than your bridge because it's starting to blend lower down than you think. So can you work that out for yourself? Having vocal lessons is by far the best way to deal with some of these things, but you can learn a hell of a lot online watching people like myself, and there's some amazing coaches out there. And, you know, I'm keen to try and make people recognize things for themselves. The quicker they can get to that, the better. Maybe you're working on, you bought something from another coach before. Maybe you're working through some training programs of other singers and other packages, or maybe you're just following some scales, or maybe you're watching the odd video like this and just doing a little bit and practicing songs. Whatever you're doing, the quicker you can notice the things that aren't right, the better. The more you can start to suss that out for yourself without needing to be told by someone and without someone pointing it out for you, the quicker the journey will be. It's not easy, but the way I coach is to try and empower people with that knowledge of what they are feeling, what they are noticing, Can I do that over the internet on a video? Maybe to some extent, but you need to be finely tuned to the tiny sensation that you're feeling. I think it's quite subtle. I think because especially when you sing really intensely, like I always did, you're so intense with your singing that the level of sensitive kind of thing that you're feeling for is so light, and it's so insignificant compared to what you're used to feeling. You won't notice the difference. You won't notice it's there. It's like it takes a while to refine this, and it depends really on what you're doing and how much you can pay attention whilst singing as well. Now, a lot of people just sing and it all comes out and they've got no idea what they did. They've no idea how to even be noticing what they're doing, because they're just thinking about singing so much, or the brain can't focus on it all at once. So again, that's your job. It's your job to try and sing and feel what's happening while you do it, or watch yourself to look for things that are going on. Okay, so I talked a lot about the kind of people who go too tense and too strainy on their way up to the bridge, and they need to learn to blend earlier. People who go the other direction, like I was saying at the start with a student who goes soft and breathy and falsetto, it's the opposite. We need to maintain a bit of the chest voice, and we need to maintain a bit of chord closure on the way up. But in some ways, you're kind of in a better place if you're doing it softly. In some ways, I say that probably because my experience was the opposite. And when people are singing light because they instinctively don't want to strain their voice, they can tell that it's going to hurt or it feels uncomfortable before they do it, and they just back out. Like I've had people get up towards the bridge and then they just don't sing that note because they can tell it's not going to come out right. And they're more in tune with the feeling of strain to the point where they just don't sing and they just stop because it's like, nah, that's not right. It's training yourself to be able to do that. Getting a bit of that sound in there, that pharyngeal sound. And it's training yourself to talk whilst holding the breath back and doing all that kind of thing. So it's not all loose and breathy like that. So as you climb up, you're just tweaking the chords, a little bit of that kind of pharyngeal thing, a little bit of the kind of like pretending, as Kevin Richards would say, pretending you're playing with a toy car, like a child playing with a toy car. It's stupid. I'm just sat here putting a video out to the world making stupid noises like that. I must be insane. Not at all. I'm a vocal coach. We all do this stuff. So you do a silly noise like you're playing with a toy car, and by doing that, you're tweaking your voice in a way that you wouldn't when you were singing. And you're training it to do something different that's going to help you get into that part of your range. And it feels strange. It feels weird at first. But when you go breathy and you go soft and you're inclined to go in that direction as you go up towards your bridge, that kind of sound, that kind of tilt of the voice can help massively because you bring the chords together. They stay closed. The chords are closed more. There's not loads of air coming through them. It's not... it's closed and balanced, and it's like so you can practice going soft and then bringing in just that little bit of to it, so you get a bit of both, and it's only a bit. You only need a little bit of that tilt. You only need a little bit of that sort of chest voice muscles just holding on to make it sound more powerful and make it sound stronger in that part of your voice, and to keep it closed to enable you to go through it. So that's my discussion for this week. There are a variety of things, but they're all the same things. Like if I do 20, 30, 40 videos on this channel, I'll probably keep referring to very similar things at the root of it all the way through, because there are a bunch of core principles that are going to help you sing right, that you always come back to. And it's just recognizing what's going on. So what do you feel? What happens if you were to just take... I'm kind of doing this in the male key, excuse me for that. If we go up to these sorts of notes here for girls. Now, if you were just to sing those notes and just follow what I did on the guitar there with any sort of vowel sound you like, or do it on an sound, the ng of the word sing. It's a closed sound like a hum, but your mouth is open and you can feel the resonance. You can really feel it vibrate if you use the sound. So maybe try that as a lighter way, an easier way of trying to work through this. Now, if you go, you can feel that, build up of intensity, then you've got an answer. Okay, for girls, again, if you start to notice this build up of intensity, then you're gripping too much and we need to let go and balance it out differently. Now, inevitably, what will happen is you'll go too far in the other direction because you haven't got that agility yet to get the in-between grey areas between these different parts of your voice. The balance just isn't that agile yet. So you end up going, or one or the other. You let go, you go falsetto, you go too strong. It's really hard to find the middle. And it's so weak. That part of your voice is so weak compared to the rest of it that sometimes it's really awkward to find it. And sometimes it just comes out as breath. Sometimes it comes out as a really raspy, not very pleasant sound at all. But your voice may not be used to working in that area very well. And it's important to recognize this. If your voice isn't used to it, it will take time to build up strength around there. It'll take time to build up something reliable in that area of your voice. So focus on it, but be really, really aware of when strain is happening or when tension is happening, and be really, really aware of when you're just letting go and letting it go too breathy and there's loads of air escaping and it's not closed and controlled. And you've just got to try and start to recognize what is going on. Now, it's way better to try and hit a balanced note that sounds rough or kind of like it's not there or it's sort of weak or unsure of itself than it is to do it in a strained way. And I've had a couple of students this week where, it came out all kinds of wrong, but they set their voice up better. And it's like, it's just going to take some time for your voice to trust you so that you let go and you don't grip and something doesn't instinctively grab hold and get involved when it shouldn't down there. Swallowing muscles, tongue muscles, getting involved. And you build that ability to hit those notes without that happening. But it might not come out very well at all. There's a lot of people, and I remember being there myself, where you just sort of can't get that note out unless you overpower it. And your voice is so used to only working in that way that it kind of can't do anything else. But you gradually need to unpack that intensity and find the balance that you're looking for. So I hope some of that helps. It's kind of like where the muscles at the back are involved. They're involved in this high end. That bit in the middle where these need to start letting go and these ones need to start taking over. There's this meeting point in the middle where you're just getting 50-50 of the balance of muscles. This is front to back in your Adam's apple, front to back, just tiny little muscles. That bit where it's half and half, it's like there's this meeting point where they both just cling on to each other. They're just involved. I don't know, it's a visualization. It's not a literal thing. I'm just trying to visualize it for you. It feels, it's like there's this meeting point. You let go too much, it's not right. You hold on too much, it's not right. There's this point in the middle where they just get the balance right, and it's so delicate, such a delicate part of your voice. So give yourself a break, psychologically, if you are beating yourself up about this part of your voice, and persevere and have trust in the process that you can work it out, and just keep getting better at feeling your way through those parts of your voice and working out what's going on, just seeing if you can work it out for yourself a little bit. Feel free to fire me some questions. Feel free to take advantage of my 15-minute free consultation that I've offered as well. I'm happy to sit on a video call very quickly, hear you sing, and tell you a few things that you can do, a few exercises, help you spot what's going on. So I'll point out, right, you're doing this, you're doing that, your voice is doing this, your body's kind of instinctively doing this. You may not be aware that's what it's doing. See if we can try and fix that. I'll give you 15 minutes of my time just to kind of help you out. That's a free offer. So you can find that on singingmatters.co.uk, singingmatters.co.uk, and a contact page. There's an option to pick that. Aside from that, just book in for some lessons and let's crack on and let's help you get your voice sorted out. I'm really pleased to see some of my students making progress. I'm really pleased to see all the comments on this page. I apologise for missing a couple of weeks and not putting video up. I'm a very busy man with lots of different jobs and different things I do in music to make a living. That's how it is. But keep talking, and I hope this has helped you in some way. The point here mainly is to try and encourage you to notice what you're doing, notice what's happening, and feel what is going on in that part of your voice, so you can start to work out what it is that you need to do differently. I hope it helps, and as always, good luck with your singing. I'll see you next time.